Welcome to this explainer. Okay, picture this. A brightly lit, high-energy control room. Phones are ringing off the hook, and every single call is literally moving millions of dollars across the oceans. Today, we're turning the invisible machinery of global oil shipping into a high-stakes, fast-paced game of strategy. Let's dive in.
To really get how this high-speed world operates, we have to start with a concept called derived demand. Because, honestly, nobody actually wants ships. You don't, I don't. We just want the fuel to power our cars, heat our homes, and keep our industries running, right? The method of getting it there doesn't really matter to us as long as it arrives safely. So those massive ships you see out on the ocean, they're just the physical reaction to our global thirst for energy.
Section 1. Changing the rules.
Now, believe it or not, this market wasn't always a crazy free-for-all trading floor. Up until the early 70s, the major oil companies had absolute vertical control. I mean, they ran the whole show: exploration, production, transportation, retail, the whole shebang. They owned or had long-term charters on a massive 88% of the world's tanker fleet. The independent spot market, that was just a tiny 12% buffer they used for seasonal peaks. It was safe, it was perfectly orchestrated. But every good story has an inciting incident, right? In the early 1970s, OPEC nations nationalized their oil reserves and installations. Literally overnight, those major oil companies lost their iron grip on production. The script was completely flipped. They couldn't dictate the board anymore, and that opened the door for a brand new, highly agile player to enter the scene: the independent oil trader. And the shockwave from this? Absolutely massive. Especially around the 1973 Arab-Israeli War. The price of a barrel of Middle East crude skyrocketed from $2.50 to $11. Think about that. And as those crude prices spiked, the cost of freight as a percentage of a barrel dropped to basically nothing, barely 1%. Suddenly, those cozy 20-year ship charters the oil majors were holding, they turned into massive financial liabilities. So what happened next? In the aftermath, the whole dynamic completely reversed. The oil majors backed away from owning fleets to cut their risks. Fast forward to today, and a staggering 80% of the world's tanker fleet trades on the independent spot market. We went from a slow, predictable monopoly to a wild, high-octane era driven by independent traders who are all just looking to buy and sell at the exact perfect moment.
Section 2. Moving the massive pieces.
Okay, so the market is a free-for-all. That means the sheer physical scale and the geography of the board really dictate who wins and who loses. Distance dictates size. It's a fundamental rule of geography. If you're moving crude out of the Middle East, you literally need massive ships like VLCCs, very large crude carriers, just to make that long trip economical. But take local finds, like Alaskan crude. Because it's refined and used right here in the US, it's locked down by strict domestic transport regulations, called cabotage laws. That means it can only be moved by American flag tankers. It is an entirely different rulebook. Now, you might be wondering, why not just use pipelines? Well, pipelines in places like the Middle East or Russia do offer an alternative, but man, they come with a heist movie level of security flaws. They are super vulnerable to attack, and a single point of damage can cripple the entire line. Plus, you've got the massive energy costs to run pumping stations and crazy expensive transit fees charged by different territories. When you add it all up, sea transport is still the undisputed, vital heartbeat of the industry.
Section 3. Meet the three players.
So, we've seen the board. Now let's meet the cast of characters maneuvering through this multi-million-dollar daily hustle. First up, we have the owners. They're the ones holding the actual assets, the ships. Second, the charterers. They're the ones who need the cargo moved safely. Though, a quick side note, an oil major could be a charterer today, but then relet their ship tomorrow and temporarily act as an owner. It's totally fluid. And finally, the brokers. These guys are the nerve center. They are the ultimate matchmakers, connecting the ships with the cargo across a rapidly shifting global landscape. And in a world moving this fast, information isn't just power, it's a broker's absolute lifeblood. As the saying goes, the right information at the right moment is essential to be successful. An owner doesn't just need to know what cargoes are nearby, they need to know what competing ships are lurking around and what the going rates are. Get this, 70% of fixtures never even make it to the open market. If you aren't plugged into the right intelligence network, you are quite literally flying blind.
Section 4. Inside the broker's world.
Let's step onto the brightly lit, high-energy floor of a London shipbroker to see what this actually looks like. It is a relentless, 24-hour sprint. At 8 a.m., our London broker hits the desk and instantly checks overnight intel from Tokyo and Singapore. By noon, they're scrambling to update tonnage lists and brief their principals, probably over lunch because personal relationships solve million-dollar problems. Then, 2 p.m. hits. New York wakes up. The cross-Atlantic quoting explodes into action, desperately matching ships and cargoes before London virtually closes its doors at 6 p.m. It is pure adrenaline across time zones.
But wait, it gets even more complicated. Throw in intense green issue vetting procedures. Oil majors are absolutely terrified of the PR nightmare of a pollution incident, and rightly so. They maintain massive databanks to weed out any substandard ship. And because fewer ships actually make the cut, it theoretically drives freight rates up. A charterer isn't just looking for any boat. They want a pristine, impeccably managed asset that will deliver the goods without making the evening news.
Section 5. Closing the ultimate deal.
When that perfectly vetted ship finally meets the right cargo, the clock really starts ticking. The race is on to lock down a multi-million-dollar contract before the market closes. It all sparks with a morning quote, which sets off frantic database checks. Brokers are rapid-firing counters back and forth, haggling over price, ship age, and approvals. If the stars align, they hit a mutual rate and seal it with a handshake by sunset. But the deal isn't actually done yet.
See, a fixture is initially agreed on subjects. It's a suspenseful, nail-biting waiting period. The owner might have agreed to the price, sure, but now the charterer has to get the actual oil terminal to greenlight that specific ship. Or they might be fixed subject STEM, which is literally waiting for confirmation that the charterer has actually bought the oil they're trying to ship. No way, right? It's crazy, but unlike the old days, today's market demands this tense waiting period before anything is truly final. So, for orchestrating this unbelievable high-wire act, what's the payout? You'd think it's huge, but it's actually a surprisingly low 2.5% total commission. That's usually split right down the middle. 1.25% for address, 1.25% for brokerage. It almost never tops 5%. Those razor-thin margins are exactly why these independent broking houses are so fiercely competitive and literally never sleep. And here is one final cinematic twist for you. Oil cargoes are frequently bought and sold multiple times while the ship is literally steaming mid-ocean. The final destination could flip from Bordeaux to Hamburg in the blink of an eye. To save brokers from frantically recalculating freight rates for dozens of ports on the fly, the industry uses a brilliant universal pricing matrix called WorldScale. It standardizes the payout so owners get an equivalent return no matter where that ship ends up discharging. This invisible machinery just never stops running, from the giant shockwaves of the 70s to the rapid-fire networks of today's brokers. It's a constant, brilliant orchestration of global logistics. So it really leaves you wondering, the next time you're at the pump filling up your tank, will you look past the numbers and see the cinematic, high-stakes global heist it took to safely deliver that exact fuel to your car? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking past the surface, and I'll catch you on the next one.